Well, we just picked up on the initial approach fix for our final approach to the end of this class. We're now to week 7, which leaves only 3 weeks to go before the class is over. Hopefully you are gaining some additional useful information from this class. As I said at the beginning, it is not our purpose to create you as recreate you as an aviation lawyer, but merely to help you become very familiar with how problems can be created, how they can be solved. That is the purpose of this course. And also to let you know when you must find help for whatever situation you find yourself in. Moving on, we have FAR Part 71 and Airman's Information Manual Chapter 3 are to be read this week, as well as Chapters 13 and 14. Finish up 13 and begin 14 in the textbook and in the workbook. Regulation of airspace. There was a time when the airspace regulation was absolutely minimal. There was none. And then there were airborne, there were collisions. There were mid-air collisions, and one that happened back in the 50s in the Grand Canyon. And from that point forward, regulation of airspace became essential in order to keep the flying public safe. That's how we've come to a point where airline travel is probably the safest form of travel you can embark upon. As the traffic continues to increase, airspace users are becoming more competitive over airspace for their activities. With the continued threat of terrorism, there is unrelenting pressure to prohibit flight over and in the vicinity of security-sensitive areas, facilities, installations such as nuclear and chemical plants, military installations, Washington, D.C., Disneyland, Disney World. All those places have restricted airspace over them. Why would they do that? Well, because experience has dictated that those areas must be protected. My philosophy has always been, you just never know you're standing next to at an airport. And of course, we try to give as much as we can in the way of psychological evaluation for people who are being given pilot's licenses, but that doesn't always give us the entire picture. So even areas where they're like here, whenever we have substantial visits from high level political personalities, there will be a TFR, temporary flight restriction in this area. It'll be described. Also, when there are fires, and there are things of that nature, where there must be, will be operations of aircraft for specific purposes, TFRs will be involved there. You'll learn how the FAA regulates airspace, who regulates it, what the requirements are for regulated airspace, and where you will find them. There was a time when you could fly below the rim of the Grand Canyon, and I did it because it was perfectly legal to do so. That is no longer the case. You can't do that anymore. It was quite exciting, but you can't do it any longer. Anywhere where there are going to be major crowds, you'll find that there may be TFRs. So it's up to you to be aware. Of course, you as a pilot in command, you are vested with that responsibility of knowing all the conditions for your flight. There will be probably an understanding quiz after this week as well. So you need to be very familiar with the information. No one wants to surprise you. The purpose of those quizzes is to be certain that you have understood, and that now that you know the information, do you understand it? Understanding and knowing are not the same things. It takes a great deal more to be able to understand and use it. There will be some additional cases in this chapter as well. United States versus City of New Haven, Connecticut, United States versus Cosby. Those are cases that will give you an idea of flight, of how the government can regulate and how the FAA regulates flight. Looking forward to week 8, we'll take our final approach fixed at that point. See you then.